The door closed with a soft thud that felt louder than any scream. Malcolm stood on the front porch, breath-forming clouds in the winter air, the straps of his backpack digging into his shoulders. His fingers were numb, but not from the cold. Inside, laughter spilled through frosted windows, cheerful, easy white. Twinkling lights blinked around the frame like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just been told he didn't belong. He tried to replay the moment, like maybe he misunderstood. But no, he hadn't. "Look, I don't mean it that way," his stepfather had said, voice calm, knife-like. "But you people always make things about race." Malcolm's jaw had tightened. "You people." His mother had looked away. The room had gone still. "Well," his stepfather said with a chuckle, "if you're going to take everything personally, maybe you should take a walk and cool off." Then came the silence, kind that wrapped around his mother like a coat. She didn't speak. Not for him, not for anything, so he left. Now the wind bit through his hoodie, and the sounds of distant carolers floated down the street like ghosts. He wondered if they knew how much it hurt to be exiled on the one night meant for love. A family inside, son outside. His fingers hovered near his phone, tempted to call her. Ask her why. Dang, maybe. But what would that change? Stepped off. The porch, each footfall crunching against the snow, carrying the weight of being unwanted. His breath quickened, not from fear, but from the need to move, to get away before the ache swallowed him whole. He turned toward one place that had never shut its door on him, Grandma. As an asterisk, Malcolm kept his head down as he walked. He pulled tight, breath sharp in the night air. Snow fell in thin sheets, dusting the sidewalk like ash. The world felt too quiet, just the sound of his sneakers crunching through slush. His heartbeat in his ears, and the occasional car passing without slowing. Each block triggered a memory he didn't ask for. The corner where his dad had been arrested. Face pressed into the hood of a squad car while neighbors peeked through blinds but said nothing. The middle school he was suspended from after defending himself against a kid who called him dark like dirt. The liquor store where the clerk still followed him, aisle to aisle, just in case it wasn't always overt. Sometimes it was a look, a pause. A lock clicked just a little too loud. His phone buzzed in his pocket. 1% left. He stopped beneath a broken streetlight and pulled it out. He hesitated, then tapped the screen and dialed. His mother's voice came on after the third ring. "You've reached Leanne. Leave a message." Inhaled. "You didn't say anything," he said softly into the voicemail. "You just stood there. I needed you, and you chose comfort." Again, handed the call without waiting for the beep. Snow. Stuck to the cuffs of his jeans. Across the street, a mural stretched across a crumbling wall. Malcolm X. Dr. King. Angela Davis. Their painted eyes seemed to follow him. By the time he reached Grandma Rose's block, he couldn't feel his fingers. He stepped onto the porch, heart pounding harder than it had all night. He knocked once. Then again. A light flicked on inside. His body ached. But for the first time tonight, something in him eased. Asterisk, the door creaked open, revealing the familiar face that Malcolm didn't realize he'd been holding his breath for. Grandma Rose stood there, wrapped in a thick burgundy robe, her gray hair tucked beneath a satin bonnet, eyes narrowing against the cold. She blinked once, then stepped aside. "Come on in, baby. No questions, no sighs. No are you herees, just warmth." Malcolm stepped inside, and the heat from the small living room hugged him instantly. His sneakers left wet prints on the welcome mat, and his jeans clung heavy. With snow, the scent of cinnamon and old wood filled the air, wrapping around him like a blanket. She didn't ask what happened, not yet. Instead, she handed him a towel and turned toward the kitchen. Minutes later, he was sitting on the couch, damp socks off, fingers curled around a warm mug of cocoa. The fire crackled softly, casting gold light across Rose's face as she settled into her recliner. Her hands, strong and steady, rested on her lap. Only then did he speak. "He called me one of them," Malcolm said, staring into the mug. "And she just stood there. Didn't say a word. It's like I wasn't even her son." Rose didn't flinch. She leaned forward, her eyes steady and blazing. "You ain't the first they tried to erase," she said, "but baby, you're still here?" Malcolm looked up, something trembling just beneath his ribs. She chose him. "No," Rose replied, voice quiet but sharp. She chose silence. "That ain't the same, but it cuts just as deep." The fire popped behind them. Malcolm didn't know if he wanted to cry or scream, but in her presence, he didn't have to do either, just breathed outside. The wind howled. Inside, he was safe for now. Asterisk, 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 the fire had dimmed to soft embers. The clock on the mantel ticked steadily, a quiet rhythm filling the space where neither Malcolm nor Rose had spoken for several minutes. Then, without warning, Rose leaned over and pulled a small tin box from beneath the coffee table. She opened it with hands that knew its contents by memory, not sight. From inside, she pulled a worn black and white photograph, edges curled, one corner torn. "Ever seen this?" she asked. Malcolm took it gently. It showed a young woman, his grandmother, he realized, wearing a nurse's uniform, standing beside a dormitory door. Her smile was faint, but her eyes were defiant. "I was 18, Rose said. First in the program to look like me. They didn't want me there, said I didn't fit the image. Told me to keep quiet, keep my head down." She stared at the photo, candlelight flickering in her eyes like reflections of old pain. "I asked too many questions," she continued. "Sat at the front of the class, spoke too clearly, made them uncomfortable. One night, they told me I was disrupting unity, told me to leave or be removed." She looked up, her voice thin but unwavering. "They put me out in the snow. Too, baby, different year, same hatred." Malcolm swallowed hard. "What did you do?" he asked. "I left," she said. "But I kept my name, kept my voice. They took the room. They didn't take me." She placed the photo back in the box and closed the lid. "I didn't tell you before," she added, "because I thought maybe you'd get to grow up without knowing what that kind of cold feels like." The silence returned, but this time it was full of shared memory and something else. Resolve. The morning sun crept through the curtains in thin lines, dust particles floating in its path. Malcolm sat on the couch, wrapped in the same blanket Grandma Rose had handed him the night before. The house smelled faintly of oatmeal and sage, calm and grounded like her. His phone buzzed. He didn't move at first, but it kept vibrating. Finally, he picked it up and saw the name glowing on the screen, Mom. He answered without speaking. "Malcolm." Her voice cracked immediately. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I froze. I was scared." Didn't reply. Just stared ahead, the phone trembling slightly in his hand. "I should have said something," she whispered. "I should have stopped him. Please come home. We'll talk. I'll make it right." Across the room, Rose looked up from her knitting. She nodded once. "Put it on speaker, baby." Malcolm did. Rose's voice came steady, clear. "Leanne, you let that boy be pushed out of his own home on Christmas night? I didn't mean you let silence side with cruelty. And that has a price." There was a long pause on the line. "He's not coming back." "Not yet," Rose continued. "Not until he remembers who he is, till he feels like more than a guest in his own skin." Malcolm lowered the phone slowly, ending the call without another word. The room was quiet again. His eyes burned. But no tears came. "She sounded scared," he said. Rose nodded. "Maybe she should be. Sometimes fear is what makes folks finally choose who they're standing with." Malcolm stared at the phone on the table. His hands had stopped shaking. Outside, wind stirred the trees. Inside, something steadier had begun to grow. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. By noon, the house was alive with motion. Rose moved through her kitchen like a general with purpose pulling pans from cabinets, flipping through old church contact sheets, and muttering to herself about missing foil and too many sweet potatoes. Malcolm trailed her, confused but curious. She paused only once, at the hall closet, to pull out her best coat, deep emerald, with black buttons and a fur-lined collar. "Time to do something," she said, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. 10 minutes later, She was on the phone with the director of the old community center downtown. "Marlene, I need the church basement today." "Yes, Christmas night." "It's short notice, but trust me, there's a reason." By 4 o'clock, the folding chairs were set up in rows. Tables lined the walls, each one slowly filling with trays of macaroni, ham, cornbread, and collard greens. Rose had made calls. People had answered. Word had spread. They called it Christmas for the forgotten. Dozens came. Black teens who'd been kicked out or overlooked, elders without family, single parents clutching tired toddlers, the basement filled with stories no one had wanted to hear. And now Malcolm stood near the door, watching it all unfold. He'd never seen resistance look like this before. Not a protest, not a fight. Just people, fed, seen, honored. "You don't fight hate with more hate," Rose said, standing beside him. "You fight it by loving yourself loudly." Her eyes scanned the room like a mother surveying a miracle. The overhead lights were harsh, but the glow of joy made them soft. Laughter broke out near the desert table. A boy handed his coat to a shivering elder without being asked. Malcolm felt something shift in his chest. Not just warmth, but power. This wasn't just a dinner, it was a reclaiming. Asterisk, the hum of conversation filled the church basement like a soft tide, plates clinking, chairs scraping, laughter echoing through concrete walls. Malcolm stood near the edge of the crowd, arms folded, unsure. But then Rose gently touched his back. "They're ready if you are," she said, nodding toward the small podium near the makeshift stage. He hesitated, then he stepped forward. The microphone crackled as he adjusted it. Every eye turned toward him, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt like light. "My name's Malcolm," he began, voice low, hands gripping the podium edges. I spent last night outside. Not because I wanted to, but because someone told me I didn't belong in a house that should have been mine too." He paused. A few heads tilted, listening deeper. "They told me to leave," he continued. "But maybe I was never meant to stay small. Maybe I was meant to take up space." The room grew still. Malcolm exhaled slowly, like releasing something he'd carried too long. "I thought I was the only one. I thought if your own family doesn't stand up for you, then maybe it's your fault. But being silent doesn't mean being wrong. Just means no one heard you. ... Yet." He looked up and saw them. Nods, soft murmurs. One man clapped quietly. Rose sat in the front row, tears glinting on her cheeks. Malcolm smiled. Not big, not loud, but real. He stepped down from the podium, heart thudding not from fear, but from relief. For the first time, he wasn't shrinking to fit someone else's idea of him. He was standing, and the room stood with him. Asterisk, it was a quiet Sunday afternoon when the knock came. Malcolm looked up from the couch, where he'd been flipping through an old photo album. Grandma Rose didn't move from her chair, just gave him a knowing look and a soft nod. He opened the door. His mother stood there, bundled in a navy coat, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands clasped in front of her like a child waiting for permission. "Hi," she said. He stepped aside. "Come in." The living room hadn't changed. The fire was going. The same gospel hymn hummed from the radio, soft and slow. Rose was in the kitchen, humming along. His mother didn't sit right away. She hovered near the table before finally lowering herself into a chair. Malcolm sat across from her. "I didn't come to defend anything," she began. "I came because I was wrong." He stayed quiet. "I let someone else decide what love looked like," she continued. "And I let my silence speak louder than your hurt." Malcolm looked at her, jaw tight. He watched it happen. "I did," she whispered. "I thought staying quiet would keep the peace, but it cost me you." Rose returned, placing 2 plates of steaming stew on the table. She didn't speak, just gave her daughter a long, unreadable look before disappearing back into the kitchen. They sat in silence for a while. Then Malcolm picked up his spoon and took a bite. His mother did the same. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. Outside, snow fell softly, painting the world in quiet white. Inside, warmth returned, not as noise, but as presence. and for the first time in a long time, Malcolm felt like he belonged at the table.